I'm Tim Gasper. I'm recently joined to the ServiceNow family via the acquisition of data.world. So data.world is one of the leading data catalog and governance software companies out there. We announced it at Knowledge, and it was finalized in July that we are joining the ServiceNow family and becoming a part of ServiceNow's new data and analytics business unit. And so today we wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about what is kind of next gen data strategy in the context of ServiceNow and in the context of some of the new things that we need to accomplish around AI as organizations moving into the sort of the post data lake and into more of the Gen AI kind of landscape and world now. So excited to walk through that with you all. And as mentioned, feel free to pop in some questions or comments in the chat. We can make this very engaging. My partner in crime, Juan Sequeda, who is the chief scientist at data.world and is now principal researcher at ServiceNow, couldn't make this live session, but both Juan and myself do a lot of presentations. We were just recently at a Big Data London conference in London, giving some talks there. Juan and I both are also co-hosts of a podcast. So if you enjoy podcasts, check out Catalog and Cocktails. It's a podcast we used to do as part of data.world, and we're continuing it now at ServiceNow. And it's a lot of fun. We always have great data guests, and we like to drink a cocktail or mocktail while we do it. So that makes it extra fun. So without further ado, kind of stepping forward, as you saw John's show, right? This is a slide I think that shows up often in this, where ServiceNow is really looking to power next generation AI workloads for all organizations and really drive business transformation and not do it to establish a digital workforce that replaces humans, but rather create a partnership with humans to make AI work for us, right? And I think that's an exciting vision and a very important part of how we're going to create value out of all the exciting things happening with Gen AI and with agentic applications. Now, in order to make that successful, there are three things, really four things that have to all come together. So the fourth thing is industry and domain knowledge, right? That's the kind of thing that sits at the top. And the three platform components are workflows, which is the bread and butter of ServiceNow. It's AI. How do we take these different AI agents and LLMs and machine learning and all these different interesting aspects and use that to enhance and accelerate and automate our workflows? But then also there's data, right? And data is a very important part of this three-legged stool and something that ServiceNow is spending a lot of energy really strengthening overall in terms of both our partnerships and our ecosystem connections, as well as our own core capabilities. And that's especially the part that we'll dive into in this particular presentation. And the reason why this is so important, like why does data show up in that diagram? Why can't we just have AI and workflows and, add some industry expertise on top and kind of make AI magic happen for our organizations? Well, AI is only as powerful as your data. I think this is something that we've really found across all organizations is that when you try to deploy these AI POCs and applications, if you're not feeding it the right data, and that could be unstructured information, it could be structured information, then it's not going to do the right things for you, right? It's going to have hallucinations. It's going to use untrusted data, right? There's a customer of ours that we work with that started to build out a POC about a year and a half ago, and they wanted to ask, hey, what is the GDP of a particular country? And every time it would answer the question, it was grabbing information from 10 years ago instead of the most recent information. So everything is about data and context to make AI do what we want to do, especially when we move beyond just the low-hanging fruit, right? And so that's been a very big focus for us is if we want AI to do work for people, then it needs to have trustworthy data and accessible data to be able to do that. And on top of that, your data itself can't just be connected. It needs to be ready to be leveraged. And Gartner recently did some analysis on the state of different organizations and found that 60% of companies are going to have AI projects fail due to the lack of AI-ready data. And so I think many of you have perhaps heard this phrase being thrown around a lot now, like, hey, AI ready data, bringing back old phrases that we've been using for a while, like garbage in, garbage out. Whether you believe in that phrase exactly or not, I think it at least brings the point of, hey, we've had some shaky foundations around data in our organizations. And we've been able to get around that a little bit through people doing sometimes workarounds, sometimes heroic work to take these different data sets. And let's say you see a dashboard and the numbers don't quite make sense. And you're like, I don't understand why this dashboard is like that. I don't really trust it. What do? You go send somebody a Slack message or a Teams message, right? And you say, "Hey, like the numbers don't make sense here," right? Or you open up a ServiceNow ticket and you're like, "The numbers don't match. Why? Like I can't trust this dashboard." So you're able to work around that. AI doesn't have as much of that luxury, right? We need to make sure we actually have that trusted foundation, or it's going to be really difficult. And I saw a comment here in terms of, is it 60% over overall projects or 60% of failed projects? That 60% of overall projects will fail. So that means, out of 10 projects, six of them will fail. And it's primarily going to be due to the AI ready. It's going to be due to a lack of AI ready data. So if you take out the AI ready data piece, then it's probably even higher than that, right? Maybe 80% of projects are failing, 60% is due to the lack of AI ready data. So this is a big problem, right? And it's calling attention to things that we have to do in our organization to make us successful. Now, what does it mean to be AI ready, right? Becoming AI ready is bringing a lot of attention to data quality and data governance. Parts of our organizations that really got kind of kickstarted because of things like GDPR and SOX regulation and things like that now have a bit of a new mandate because of all this energy and investment that's going into AI that's going to require a new set of use cases around governance. And so some of this is more around discovery, right? Lost productivity, data analysts spending 80% of their time looking for and preparing data versus only 20% on actual data analytics. Well, AI is not super good at data prep yet, right? So this is a big challenge for AI. Not being data driven, right? Only 26% of executives say that their decisions are being data driven in their organization, which is a big problem. The governance burden, right? There's new regulation coming out in all sorts of different areas, and AI is a whole new landscape, right? California just passed a big set of AI regulations that now organizations are trying to figure out how to grapple with. The need to modernize. We have a lot of modernization projects going on, but a lot of them are failing. The need to become ready for AI, as we've stated, and also to alleviate a lot of the pain that our teams are experiencing. Actually, data.world a few years ago partnered with Data Kitchen, which is a company that focuses in the data ops space, and we did a survey of 1,000 data engineers. And in that survey, the results came back, and we were just astounded. 97% of data engineers said that they were frustrated with their job, and 70% said that they'd be open to new opportunities in the next 12 months. So that just goes to show how much strain and difficulty the data organizations in our companies are dealing with, and how important it is for us to leverage AI as a way to make their lives easier, not make their lives harder. So this is a pretty big data management and data governance burden that we need to solve. And it's going to require us to have a new way to make trust, adoption, and impact happen. So data hell is real. How are we going to get out, right? And this connects to what ServiceNow's strategy is around data. One is really around connectivity, right? We need to be able to have access to that data. And whether it's workflows or people or applications or AI agents, if they can't access the data, they're not going to be able to leverage it, right? So connectivity is a very, very important piece. Secondly is understanding, right? A lot of the research that's been happening lately around AI centers around if you don't pass it context and the right trusted context, it's not going to be successful. And so we're all, as organizations, having to get a lot smarter about how we manage that context, how we discover that context, and how we make it available to AI applications and people as well. And so words like ontology and knowledge graph have been a little bit kind of at the edges of the organization in the past, or maybe thought of as more of a library sciences thing. But as we go forward, is now really entering the mainstream very quickly because it's critical to drive a layer of understanding, a semantic layer for our organizations. And then thirdly, taking action. This has always been the core of what ServiceNow does, being able to drive workflows and action off of particular industry use cases and particular pieces of information and for people. And that is especially true as we think about data as well, both to help you manage your data as well as leverage your data in context for these AI agents and for these different workflows and applications. So this is our 1, 2, 3 strategy: connect, understand, and take action around data. And I'm going to go into each of these and unpack it a little bit more, both at a high level as well as a little bit more technically. So the core offering, and you heard John mention this at the beginning, that ServiceNow is providing that's meant to solve a lot of these data challenges and is at the center of our data strategy is the workflow data fabric. And that is a suite of capabilities that allows you to connect and understand your data and be able to take action off of it. So connect, you can see some of the different capabilities here. We are really good as part of this offering at allowing multiple modalities of interacting with these different pieces of data and information. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about each of these in a minute, but this provides a lot of flexibility to, hey, whether it's a workflow or an app or an AI agent, where is that data coming from? Is it a document? Is it like a PDF that lives somewhere that I need to pass to an AI agent? Like, for example, let's say I'm an insurance company and I want to build an AI agent that can look at claims documents. Okay, well, then that's kind of one form of data. Or am I trying to look up how many customers do we have in this region? That's more of a data question. I need to query a database in order to get access to that. Is it something where I actually need to click through some sort of an interface to automate something or get this information? Now we're talking more like robotic process automation. Maybe it's streaming event information. So lots of different modalities. And then there's the understand layer, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail as well in a little bit. And understand here is where data.world especially plugs in, which has recently joined the family and where I've come from. So these are really, really key pieces. All of this is a part of the broader portfolio of capabilities within ServiceNow. So connect, right? The main goals of our strategy around connectivity is that you should be able to have your agents, your people, your workflows, and your apps be able to connect to and leverage any data, no matter where it lives. And that is going to allow you to have instant access to all your enterprise information, whether structured, unstructured, or streaming, in batch or in real time, both inside and outside of ServiceNow. It's going to allow you to integrate without having a bunch of complexity. So much work goes into building and maintaining data pipelines. A lot of those need to exist. A lot of those are things that we need to integrate with. But if we can simplify some of these integration architectures, that's going to allow people to get value out of AI a lot faster. And we want to simplify architecture overall. This is going to allow you to reduce costs. You don't want AI initiatives to just be the tip of the iceberg, driving too much difficult complexity and cost underneath the water. That's not a useful iceberg. And so the more we can simplify that architecture, it's going to be better for everyone. As part of this, we've connected to a lot of different data sources, right? That's the only way we can provide this broad vision around connectivity. And you can see a preview of some of these different folks that we're integrated with here. And we're growing this list every single day. So this is an area that we're really focused on and is key to your strategy because every one of your organizations has different tools that you're using. And I think I recently read that the average large enterprise has over 800 SaaS tools that they're managing on average. And so that just goes to show how broad it is. It'd be great if we didn't have all these tools and if we didn't have to integrate with them all, but the reality is that that's not going to change super quickly. And so we need to make sure that we can integrate with anything we need to. And when we zoom into those specific capabilities of the WDF connectivity, these are some of the really big items there. Integration hub spokes are really great at connecting to API-based systems. External content connectors are really great at connecting to content repositories. Think your Confluences, your SharePoints, or your file stores. Stream Connect is for your streaming data sources. Think event data, IoT data, maybe transaction data that's happening in your organization and making that available to your workflows, AI agents, and people. Zero copy connectors are the ability to connect into your data lake or your databases to be able to access key information. So many of you probably have Snowflake in your organization or Databricks, or maybe you're using Microsoft Fabric or Oracle or any number of these different data lake, database, or data lakehouse architectures. Being able to quickly access trusted information in those sources is really key. And following key security paradigms as well. And then lastly, RPA, right? Robotic process automation, really great for accessing information or automating things that leverage different user interfaces. So all these different capabilities are really critical here and a part of what we need to be able to do when we're working with different data and making it available to our different AI agents. Now, the part that I want to especially spend some time on, because this is where data.world and where the knowledge graph aspect is really important, is understanding. And this is a key part of Workflow Data Fabric and our data strategy as well. If you don't understand the data, it doesn't matter that you've provided it. And time again, we can see with POCs, we can see with research that are happening across the industry that if you just throw data at an AI agent, it'll provide you an answer, but it's not going to be the right answer, right? It's going to bullshit you. And so that's why it's so important to provide that grounding, that understanding. And it's not just for AI agents. We should have been doing this all along for our people internally, but it's hard. But now we can focus on this because the carrot is really clear here in terms of benefit. And we can use AI to make the job easier, right? So we don't have to spend as much manual effort to try to govern our information. So understanding in the context of ServiceNow is really providing an active governance capability and an active metadata capability where we're collecting all the context about your ServiceNow landscape, but also your broader external landscape of your data systems, but also your knowledge, right? In your organization, do you have a consistent definition for customer? Great if you do. But most organizations, if you talk to finance, they'll say customer means one thing. If you talk to marketing, they'll say it means another thing. If you talk to your sales department, they'll say another thing, and your product department, they'll say another thing, right? And so these are actually very difficult things to manage and align the semantics of the organization, but we have to. And that's part of what an understand layer or a semantic layer is going to mean for your organization as we go forward. By doing this understand approach, right? Our strategy is to make sure that you can ensure quality and governance. That's absolutely critical for AI readiness. To bring order to the data chaos that exists within organizations by centralizing metadata and making everything searchable and powering agents, right? Agents both that can help you to manage and govern your data, but also to leverage that context and leverage that data and plug it into your AI agents that you're building. So this is the key strategy around understanding. To kind of use a metaphor here, or to visualize this a bit, you have so many different systems that live within your organization, and they have a particular way of thinking of the world. Think of your ERP system, for example, right? It thinks of things in terms of, your accounts and your supply chain and representing information in that specific way.
Hey,
But
Tim.
now when you want to go and build a dashboard or an agent that can leverage that information, it's very difficult, right? And
Hey,
imagine
Tim.
you have to blend these different systems together. You've got some of the information lives in your ERP, some of it lives in your CRM, some of it lives actually in your data lake. Being able to harmonize and unify that information can be very difficult. And then you have to figure out what's the right metric definition. What is the definition of customer, as that example before?
Hey, Tim.
This is a huge gap, a meaning gap. Yeah, John?
When you're talking about this type of governance, does identity access fall into this type of governance, or is identity access something different?
That's a good question. I think identity access is a part of this equation. Sometimes that fits a little bit into sort of the security side, not just the sort of data governance and data discovery side, but that is a key aspect as well because it ties back to policy, right? What is the policy of who's allowed to access what? For what purposes, how long are they able to access it? So, sort of this idea of who, what are you allowed to access? Where are you allowed to access it? How long? That's definitely a key part of broader governance.
Tio, did that get your question?
Hey John, yeah, thank you for the answer, team. That actually answered my question. That was a concern I was having.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just to quickly note on that, I think sometimes when people think about governance, there's kind of layers, right? There's like quality, there's mastering, there's semantics, there's data protection, there's access management. So there's a lot of lenses of data governance. And certainly it's hard to do all of them well, all at the same time across all of your data, right? I think that's called boiling the ocean. And so we all have to decide, what are the aspects that we're going to focus on within our companies that is driven by business value, that's driven by the staffing that we have. But what's exciting is that as we leverage some of these platforms like ServiceNow and as we automate more of this, it allows us to bite off a little bit more than we used to in the past. So that's, I think, an exciting opportunity. So, kind of tying back to what you're seeing on the screen here, essentially there's this meaning gap between the way that, our applications were designed and how they think of the world versus how we're trying to drive automation and action. And this gap is becoming a really big issue because we actually are no longer living in this world of sort of left to right data analytics pipelines. It's actually becoming more of a feedback loop, right? Because when an insight happens, you want it to drive action, and you might want it to, send an alert to somebody in your supply chain to go, make a modification to a contract because of something that we've learned, an insight that we've learned. And so, as we try to close this gap, the feedback loop needs to become tighter and more iterative on how we're driving actions within our organization. So, this problem is becoming very massive for companies. And if you look just at the data team, right, you heard me mention about data engineers and how much they don't like their jobs right now. They're getting inundated with issues. Business users can't find the right data, and data governance teams and leads are very overwhelmed, right? A lot of times, governance teams within organizations are not invested in enough. And if there's anything that you can do to help your organization to say, hey, we should be investing more in governance, now's the time. Maybe some of the talking points you're hearing today can help you do that. Because a lot of times there's one, two, three people in our organizations that are doing governance, and then they try to enlist the help of maybe a team of 10 data stewards, which are wearing a part-time hat to try to help wrangle some data. It's very difficult, and the need for governance is greater than ever. And so, anything that you can do to drive more of a focus on governance and how that's going to tie into making your data AI ready, it's going to help you get that right foundation. So, what does good look like here, right? What does it mean for us to have a good understanding layer, whether it's provided by ServiceNow or it's just within your organization? Well, we really see that there are these challenges on the left-hand side: untrusted, messy data, one-off pipelines and silos, frequent schema breakages, right? Something changes upstream, a column name changes, a database gets moved, all of a sudden it breaks everything downstream. Your AI agent stopped working. Why? We don't know why, right? We need to be able to keep track of those changes and have stability, have a stable interface. The semantics and the understanding of the data, compliance, and then making sure that AI models specifically are being fed quality data. And so, what we need to achieve is trustworthy data, reusable data, stable, discoverable, compliant, and AI ready. I think this is a framework that we can use whether we're in the data team or we're, outside of the data team interacting with them, but driving some of the IT strategy and focus within our organization. This is what we need to try to drive and not boil the ocean, but focus on the things that are going to have the biggest impact for our business that connect to the use cases that our company cares most about and drives our top line and our bottom line. So at ServiceNow, this understanding layer is a key part of Workflow Data Fabric and what we're building out as part of the broader AI platform. And it has three major pieces to it. One is data products, right? So when you connect to all of this data and all this content, and you want to make it available for workflows or apps or people or AI agents, then you need to wrap it together with documentation and with a stable and trusted interface. And so data products is a really key strategy at ServiceNow. If you're not really familiar with the idea of data products, I definitely offer that to you as a homework item. Search a little bit online about data products. It's something that over the last couple of years has become a very, very popular topic, and for good reason, because we have so much data. We need to manage the surface area, right? Think of it like Amazon, right? When you go to Amazon and you're searching for something to buy, you see that product, right? But there's a whole supply chain behind that product on how it got built, how it got delivered, how it's going to be packaged, right? And that whole supply chain ultimately results in the product. The product is the end deliverable to the consumer. And so by taking some of that perspective in our organizations, we can manage the surface area of the problem a little bit by creating this interface layer. The second key piece is your catalog and governance capability. This is especially where data.world plugs in. And then underneath it all is the knowledge graph. That's where all the context lives for your organization. And ServiceNow is one of the pioneers in really building out a really strong knowledge graph capability. If you have these three components, then we can drive smarter AI, trusted data, and data visibility. So here you can see a little bit more on what is a data product. A data product at ServiceNow is the combination of the data, the metadata, right? So what is this data, right? Oh, this is unbilled shipments. And unbilled shipments has this data in it. It has these fields, and it's available in this place. And by the way, it's confidential, but it's not highly restricted. It's just confidential, right? This is all metadata that helps us understand what this is. And it's an API. Okay, cool. So now I know what its interface is. And then thirdly is it has a stable interface. And that means that if it is an API, is it versioned, right? Right now I'm building an AI agent and I want that to interact with this data. I want it to use version number 2 of that data. Now somebody changed the data. Version 3 came out. If version 3 comes out and just replaces it automatically, my AI agent's going to break, or at least it's going to have a problem, right? And so this ability to have stable interfaces is really important to data products. And data products is an exciting concept because it allows you to mix and match and bundle, right? And so shipments and invoices might be feeding this unbilled shipments product, but this unbilled shipments product feeds a customer risk product, a billing integrity product, and an upsell opportunities product. So this is a key part of ServiceNow's strategy to provide predictability and reliability and trustworthiness and discoverability for our AI agents, our applications, and broader capabilities. And these data products can be made up of one or multiple different tables of information, whether within ServiceNow or outside of ServiceNow, connected through things like zero copy. You can discover it all in your catalog, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and even publish it to your marketplace if you want to, which is a capability that data.world has. So data products, very interesting topic. Probably could be a webinar all its own. Definitely look into a little bit around data products online if this is something that interests you. It's a very, very interesting topic to me because it blends both data and product management, which I think two things that really should go together more. Now let's get a little bit into catalog. So data catalogs, if you aren't as familiar, they manage your data related assets for making it simple for people and AI to discover, understand, and govern them. Think of it like you have a library, right? And you've got all those books in the library, but there's that computer terminal where you can go to and you can search across all the information in the library. Or if you're old school, you can go find the card catalog. Yep, it's still there somewhere. And you can look in there, right? And it'll tell you, hey, there's this book. It's made by this author. It was written in this date, and it's available in aisle 7, section 5, right? And so the data catalog is that repository and that user interface, and also an action center, right? Workflows and policies to allow you to effectively manage that information. Data governance is a topic that's closely related to that. And there are more technical definitions about governance. You can feel free to look it up. If you really want the sort of the key reference, the full definition, check out Dama Diembak, Damadmbok, Dama Dembak. It's a huge book. I have it on my shelf behind my virtual background here, and it'll have the official definition from the industry consortium around what is governance, what is quality, what are all these different things. But at data.world and now at ServiceNow, we like to provide a little bit of a simpler definition, which is that data governance enables organizations to do amazing things with data safely, right? And the way to think of that is, why do cars have brakes? Is it so that way they can drive slow? No, right? The reason why we have brakes, why we have rules of the road, and why we have paved roads is because we want to drive fast, but be able to do so safely. And so this is a really important way to think about governance in your organization. Governance can sound like the police or something like that, and they're going to tell you what you can and can't do. They're going to sit in their ivory tower and look down upon the masses and say, no AI for you, right? But that's not how it should work in our organizations. It needs to be around enablement and usage. And this is actually becoming very popularized in the data governance space. So for those in the audience who are a little less involved in the data governance kind of circles and professional circles, there's a huge focus right now on enablement, literacy, self-service, and then driving, of course, AI readiness. So that's exciting and something that we need to make sure our organizations stay true to. So data.world, as you heard, has joined the ServiceNow family. We are part of the data and analytics business unit of ServiceNow, and we're a data cataloging and governance leader. And this is both available as a standalone offering, but also available bundled directly into the workflow data fabric to provide you a comprehensive connect and understand capability. It ensures AI readiness and data governance. It allows you to turn your data and business intelligence into action, and it powers smarter AI agents through the metadata that you're storing within it. And what's exciting about data.world is two things. One, it drives a huge amount of adoption around data. We have many hundreds of users on average that use data.world per customer, which is extremely high for the industry. And it's because of how much of a focus we've had on user experience and driving action around data. And the second really exciting thing is a little more under the hood. We are built on a semantic knowledge graph. And that knowledge graph capability allows really, really rich representation of exactly how information connects to each other, which we'll talk to a little bit more when we talk about knowledge graph. A data catalog allows you to search across all the information across your enterprise. It gives you collectors and analyzers that can scan all your data and pull it in. That's how we collect all that metadata. And it will determine relationships like data lineage automatically so that you can see how data goes from your ERP system through your streaming system and your ETL system into your data lake, through a transform layer, and then into your dashboard or your AI agent. And so being able to see these relationships and how data moves through your system is critical to being able to ensure data quality and data governance, right? How does sensitive data move through my organization? How does an issue upstream affect things downstream? Or if something is broken downstream, how do I look upstream and see what may have caused this problem? So a catalog is a key way to drive that data trust and that data repository. And it also allows exciting ways to visualize. And so this is our Graph Explorer where you can actually see, hey, I've got this orders table. It's connected to this transform. It's connected to this policy. It's connected to these metric definitions, and it's got all this data within it. So this is an exciting way to kind of visualize your graph and step through it and navigate how these things all work together. And I see Aaron making a comment here about Dama Diembach. Yes, the second edition. That is a great example. And they're actually in the process of working on the third edition because things are moving so fast in data, and so they've already started that process. So for anybody in the audience here who's very data minded, they're actually doing a call for contribution. So feel free to stay close to what the Dama organization is doing. They also have a bunch of user groups in various cities across the world, so it's a great community to be a part of as well around data and particularly around data governance. I see another question here around traditional ServiceNow customers. How close are we to data people? Many of you have sort of ServiceNow data stewards, but are you close to data stewards or data teams? I think that's a good question. I'd love to see if anybody wants to chime into the chat there. How many of you feel like you're pretty close to your data organization and your data stewardship and governance programs versus do you feel a little bit disconnected? And I think one thing that's very interesting is I think in the last couple of decades, data and IT have kind of diverged a little bit from each other. Data has kind of gotten its resources, IT has gotten its resources. Sometimes they report to each other, right? But they often have different strategies that aren't always as concerted as they need to be. But the organizations that are being really smart are really thinking of IT and data as very tightly coupled and connected and managing that strategy in a very unified way. If you're one of those organizations, then kudos to you because that's the right way to do it. And that's how we're going to actually achieve, you've probably heard people talking about the digital twin, right? How do we achieve the digital twin for our organization? You're not going to be able to do that unless you have a unified view of both the data landscape as well as your broader technology landscape.
And AI is really what's the big driver that's bringing IT back together with the data world. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, John. Exactly. Here's a little bit more of a detailed architecture around data.world and what we provide. Catalog, governance, glossary, that marketplace where you can publish and view your data products. So you might have hundreds of thousands of data assets in your organization, but maybe 100 or 50 or 200 of the most important data products that have the most governance and discoverability and trust around them. That becomes your trusted layer. That's something that you can publish and manage within data.world. And then, of course, AI capabilities that allow you to enrich and enhance that catalog and that governance process. And then thirdly, as part of this understand layer is the knowledge graph. And that's a really key part of what we're building out at ServiceNow. And the knowledge graph is a way to represent the rich context and connections between all your data, your people, your systems, and your business processes. There are specific technologies that are used to implement knowledge graph, like graph databases, for example. But that's just the technology part. I think what's important to know is that knowledge graphs more generally are how do we represent the rich context and relationships of information and make it accessible to both people and systems. And so at ServiceNow, we've made a lot of investments in building out that knowledge graph and connect it to that underlying core semantic model, that data model underneath, so that it really understands ServiceNow's own schemas and context. This drives connected experiences, it drives data with meaning, and it allows us to do personalization, both within the catalog, for example, which has a knowledge graph basis, but also across all of the other workflows and AI agents and applications that you're trying to do. One question I see here is for data meaning, are we building agents to understand the terms in the glossaries to help with meaning and context? That's a great question. And the answer is yes, in a couple of ways. So, one is you can use AI agents to help you build your glossary and help build out your ontology. This is an area, especially of some of the cutting edge research right now, because folks really want to drive context for their AI agents and their different applications. And so the faster you can build out that ontology, or start with a glossary, but there's a whole hierarchy of like, okay, now I have a glossary, but I want it to be a taxonomy. Now I want it to be an ontology, right? And so you can kind of grow the connectedness of that particular graph and the layers of metadata that you're putting on top of that. And AI agents can help you build that out, but also AI agents benefit when you feed it that information as well. So it's a bit of a virtuous cycle here. AI to help you govern your data, and then governance information to help you with your AI. So it's both in both those directions. And what's cool about ServiceNow is that because we have these different connections to content repositories as well, we're looking at how we can really use that to drive some of this kind of ontology and glossary creation as well. So there's a lot of exciting opportunity there. So knowledge graphs, as you heard me mention, they connect data across people, process, and systems so that AI agents can understand their different relationships. And here is just a representative example of what that can look like under the hood. So in the center there, you've got your kind of traditional data catalog of, hey, I've got a table and I've got a glossary term called an order. But then you can layer additional context on top of that. Like an order is placed by a customer, and a sales database is stewarded by Ruben, who's an employee who works in the data department, right? And so you've got people information, you've got access information, which was a question earlier. And then you want to actually start to make inference about this graph so that it can help you make decisions about where there could be problems, where you need to focus your energy, and how AI can provide you some different insights and automation. So this is the thing that when you are leveraging a platform that's built on or uses a knowledge graph, you get the benefit of building this out. And I think some organizations, maybe you're in one of those organizations, are a little bit more advanced, and maybe you're actually building out your knowledge graph directly within your organization. But a lot of organizations don't necessarily have the technical wherewithal or the people in their organization to do that at the deepest level, right? You're not Netflix, you're not one of these companies, right? But if you use ServiceNow and a platform that's based on a knowledge graph, then you don't necessarily have to be a knowledge graph expert or have a knowledge graph team in order to get the benefit of a knowledge graph. So I think that's an important aspect to consider as you go forward. So data.world, you heard me mention adoption, you heard me mention the knowledge graph, and you can just see a few examples of some of the customers and partners that we work with here. The third and last piece here is taking action. And once you have your connectivity to data, once you have your understanding of data, what's the point, right? The point is to take action with that data. And so our strategy at ServiceNow and what we're working with our customers and partners to drive is you want to activate your data, so empower AI agents to improve processes, to resolve issues and optimize your business, provide you insights, automate at scale to trigger these different notifications and real-time decisions and actions, and in general have these AI agents be able to make improvements across every corner of your business to create different outcomes because it all is about driving impact and outcomes. And so, just to give you a couple of examples of what taking action can mean when you deploy this next gen data strategy from ServiceNow in your organization, let's actually go back to more of a ServiceNow lens versus a data lens. So, ITOM, IT operations management, right? You want to be able to create this unification of what's going on in your IT landscape and what's going on with your data. ITOM provides you a service map and discovery of all your IT assets and proactive issue resolution, automation and orchestration, and AI ops around all of that technical information and systems. Then, with something like data.world, you get a view of your data assets. So, a discovery capability, building out your data map, data lineage to see how the pipelines flow, data governance and policy, and data quality and observability information. When you bring all of this information together, you can do things like have an alert in ServiceNow which says, hey, one of your databases is about to run out of space, and automatically say, oh, these are the dashboards and AI agents downstream that will be affected if that happens. This is priority one, top of the queue. Let's take action right now, right? Or in the other direction, you've got a data pipeline that fails from your data team, and they're like, uh-oh, we need to fix this, right? What's the root cause? Why did this happen? Okay, we see that there's something upstream where the problem may have come from. Let's create an alert in ITOM to notify the proper people so that they can help us. This means faster time to resolve issues. This means overall a better environment of trust around data and around technology more generally in your organization. Or let's look at another example, ITSM, which is your service management capability through ServiceNow. Um, in general, one of the most common tickets that will come into the technology department in your organization is going to be some kind of a problem. Somebody's got an issue of some kind that needs to be resolved. Sometimes these are data related. And so if you get this ticket that comes through your help desk and it's data related, I want to automatically enrich it with information about what is this data, where did it come from, what is it connected to, what is it related to, what might be the resolution. And this is going to allow us to actually have more of a self-healing capability, or at least a recommended resolution capability that really has been difficult in the past. So this gives you an example of what you can do to take action when you especially combine some of these different things together from both IT and data. And what's exciting also is that not everybody is part of ServiceNow, and that's okay, right? Let's say your data team lives in Jira or lives in GitHub issues. The ability to connect to all these different tools, you saw that slide of connecting to hundreds of tools. Being able to connect all these things together provides a great way to do things. So, taking action means being able to drive all sorts of actions within different business units, within different business processes, across governance, across compliance, and you can imagine all the industry use cases as well. So that's the exciting opportunity that we see is by connecting and understanding, you can drive action across all these different key areas. And last week, we announced the AI Experience by ServiceNow, which is where we're taking AI web agents, AI Data Explorer, the ability to get kind of insights through natural language, voice agents, Lens, where we can actually see what the screen is and what it's doing and what it's showing. And of course, our broader ability to build different agents and agentic workflows and embedding those experiences across our portfolio. And it's already available in a lot of our different applications. And so when you combine all of this together, you can really see, hey, connect to all my data. That's critical to have accessibility to information. Understanding, right? What data do I have? What is the semantics of that data? How do I productize that data into trusted, reusable, stable, reliable forms? And then driving action across my organization from IT to line of business to even the AI agents and AI experiences that I'm trying to create for my own customers, right? So you can see how this is really a foundation that drives a lot of this. This fundamentally is the strategy that we're focused on from a next gen data perspective. So I hope that's very interesting to you all. Obviously, you can see lots of opportunities here to dive in more, whether it's around knowledge graphs, around data products. Obviously, data catalog and governance is a field all its own around access management, policy, compliance, around discoverability. Obviously, these are very interesting topics. I'm very passionate about it, but this gives you at least a lay of the land of kind of how these different pieces come together to ensure that AI can work for us instead of the other way around. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and just see if there's any questions. And while we're looking at that, John, I know I've been stealing the microphone for a while here. Anything that you want to add or any questions that you're seeing?
There's a couple questions on where EA comes into this. I think there's some obvious areas like the information objects and CSTM, right? And getting classifying systems according to the information they have access to.
Yeah,
There's
I think
also like in CSTM, there's also the foundation data that probably other people have to work with other, data stewards of other systems. And so, but is there any other areas too where the EA really comes into play?
that's a great question. And Mark, I see you on here as well. And I know this is something that you're thinking about day and night. Curious if you want to add anything on this
Yeah, I
topic.
know Doug's here too, so that's a great to have all you guys on at once.
Yeah, it is an area because we in the EA space we have four food groups I call it, right? Applications, information, technology, and business, right? So when you break down the data picture, right, that's a big part of what data.world kind of provides is that semantic understanding of the data. But it's also the other thing that I would mention is that we're creating a lot of data. I think, Tim, you kind of went into some use cases. Some of our customers are even asking, can I hoover in everything on ServiceNow into the graph? And so, so there's some interesting operational things we can do to play together. And the last one that we've been talking about is data lineage because we know about the systems out there. We're discovering them all. And if we knew how data was flowing across those integrations, and we're building something called, data, API insights to kind of hoover in some of that detail, not only like for data repositories, but also for transactional data that goes from system to system, right? Transactionally. So this gives us a whole new visibility layer to what you can analyze in the graph. So there's a bunch of use cases. The EAs kind of get involved because they need to know these moving parts. They got to get to know how do these, our systems together come together, but also how do we tackle the data layer in context of the technology or business or applications, right? So I used to pick on, this is going all the way back to when I worked at Dell. I used to pick on my data architects as the redheaded stepchildren in the EA world because they had a very unique set of challenges, a very unique set of tools that didn't really mesh with what the other EAs were doing, right? From a systems design perspective. So that's been what I've seen in the industry, and I think there's a huge opportunity in working together. We're already kind of well along in those discussions.
Yeah,
Very cool.
absolutely. Well stated. And the only thing I'll add is that, there's so much that you've modeled of your business already within ServiceNow, right? So in that sense, a lot of this sort of semantic layer has been established, and now it's about how do we extend that and how do we make it have maximum
Mhm.
impact for some of the stuff that we're doing, whether it's from an AI perspective or really from a broader data perspective. There's so much gold there. The data teams in our organizations often are kind of building their own version of the semantics. We have to find a way to get to more unified semantics within our
Yes.
organization, or we'll constantly be reinventing the wheel.
Exactly. I mean, when I came here to create APM before EA, right? Just the definition of a business app is all over the freaking map. And so we've standardized that internally for our own products and to work in our own data model to work across the different tools we provide, right? So that's what CSDM really represents. And the CI classes, if you go down into that level, and some other stuff within each product area, but we've standardized on it, a whole, as far as the connective tissue across what's common in our across our product areas. So it's a lot. There's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. And do we have time for one more question? I see
We
one here
do. We can
about.
go over a little bit if we need to, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, I'll have to run in about a minute, but I think I can do one more question real quick, or we'll see if we can squeeze in two. One person asked, anything more we can say about data quality? So I think that's a very interesting question because data quality is a little bit in the eye of the beholder. I love the phrase fit for purpose, which I think is a better phrase to represent what data quality should mean for your organization, which is contextual, use case specific. But just technically speaking, data.world, for example, has some data quality capabilities built directly into it to allow you to do some testing and monitoring of different capabilities. But also, there's a whole ecosystem out there of different data quality tools. A lot of times, organizations have 5, 10, 15 different kinds of ways for different parts of their stack they're tracking data quality, whether it's like monitoring for anomalies or data testing or broader scorecarding of capabilities. And you need to aggregate those signals together. You should aggregate it in your catalog and in your knowledge graph. That's the best place to bring all that information together. So that's a great question there. And then I'll do one more real quick, and then I'll have to run. What about ServiceNow configuration is available for agents? Any plans to expand dependencies on Fluid? That's actually a good question. I don't know if that's something that John or Mark know more about, or maybe that's something we should follow up on.
Probably follow up on. I did
Yeah.
put a link into the fit for purpose, direction just now in the chat here because we're moving in that direction away from crawl, walk, run, fly in terms of how we think about our data, and then towards that. But yeah, I think we'll have to come back to that second.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. Last year we had a meeting on this and didn't know it. So last year we had a specific meeting on data foundations of CSDM, which everybody struggles with. Like, where is our location data? Where is our
Well,
people data,
this
right? And
this is a safe harbor statement, but we were moving to a concept called Service Graph. We introduced that when we introduced Service Graph connectors, but the idea of mastering data from many sources and creating one, combined system of record, that is kind of what the CMDB is. And as we get into non-CI things like locations, we need a
yeah,
master system of record of locations, right? That's combining data center details or human details or customer details, right? Where do we sell? But we need one, master system, and we're sort of coming at it from that direction. But that's kind of where we're going.
awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks, John, and thanks, Mark, as well for jumping in on some of these here. I know you're doing a lot of really incredible work here, and I know we've got some great collaboration going on with Juan and myself and several others. So, yeah, thanks everyone for the time, and thanks, John. And I saw a few questions here of folks asking for more information, architecture diagrams, and stuff like that. I know a lot of that exists, so definitely reach out to your ServiceNow kind of representative, and they'll be able to provide you a lot more there.
And we'll pick some of it up on the community too. So thanks, Tim. We'll definitely have you back. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, buddy.